Before we dive into the origins of modern psychology, let's understand why should we even care about its history. When students learn theories today, we read the concepts and understand them, but rarely do we connect them to the bigger picture. Freud didn't just wake up one day and invent his theory. His theories were shaped by centuries of thought. Studying the history of psychology helps us see where these ideas came from. It helps us to connect the dots and gives a more meaningful understanding of the subject. So let's begin around 12,000 years ago, during what we now call the Neolithic Revolution. People began living in larger communities like villages and even started building temples. But how did they explain the world around them? Through supernatural beliefs. They imagined that nature was alive, just like us. If thunder roared, they believed nature was angry. If someone fell ill, it was an evil spirit possessing them. It was only from the 6th century BC that we had philosophers who started giving more natural explanations for the phenomena around them. Thales is often regarded as the first philosopher who believed that the universe was made of natural substances governed by natural principles and not by the will of the gods. So, he set out to find that one basic substance from which everything comes. This fundamental element was called physis. After observing the world around him, Thales concluded that water was the physis because it existed in many forms and was present in every living thing. While Thales believed water was the one essential substance, his student Anaximander wasn't fully convinced. He argued that water couldn't be the source of everything because how would you explain fire originating from water? Both have opposite properties. So he proposed something called the apeiron, boundless infinite substance from which all things emerged. This was one of the very first abstract explanations of physis, moving beyond anything we can directly see or touch. He also suggested that humans evolved from fish-like creature and eventually moved to land. And although this might sound weird now, it is important to understand that it was a huge leap toward an evolutionary view of life. After Anaximander's bold theories, his student Anaximenes took up the search for the physis. But instead of water or the boundless apeiron, he believed that air was the physis, as just like the breath is important for humans to live, the atmosphere was important to hold the earth together. While Anaximenes focused on one stable substance, air, Heraclitus took a completely different approach. He believed that nothing in the universe stays the same. For him, fire was the primary element because it symbolized constant change. Just like flames are always moving, Heraclitus argued that reality itself is in a state of constant flux. Heraclitus' idea of constant change was challenged by Parmenides, who believed that change is only an illusion of the senses and that reality is actually unchanging. From Parmenides' idea of an unchanging reality, we move to Pythagoras, one of the most influential thinkers who saw the universe through a dual lens. One universe was perfect and unchanging, and the other one constantly changed. Hence, our senses were unreliable, and to reach the truth, we needed to use pure logic. For Pythagoras, numbers and the relationships were the key to understanding everything, from the universe to the human health. While Pythagoras looked for harmony in numbers, Empedocles, Pythagoras' student, searched for harmony in nature itself. He proposed that everything in the world is made from four basic elements: air, water, fire, and earth, and that love brings these elements together and strife separates them, very similar to human nature. Empedocles also proposed an early theory of perception. His theory was that we perceive objects because tiny particles called idola flow out from the objects and enter our body through pores on our skin. All these particles travel to the heart, which he thought was the true center of perception, where the elements from our body blend with those from the outside world, thus creating our experience. From Empedocles mixing elements, we move to Democritus, who took the idea further. He suggested that beneath everything lies something even smaller, tiny, indivisible parts called atoms, and that our mind and soul were also made of these atoms. So far, many philosophers tried to explain the world and the mind in cosmological or material terms. But now, the focus turns inward, toward the body itself and the workings of the senses and mind. One of the first to take this new physiological approach was Alcmaeon. He is credited with performing the first recorded human dissection. He also traced the optic nerve all the way to the brain and concluded that sensation, perception, memory, etc., were mental functions that didn't happen in the heart but in the brain. Building on Alcmaeon's discoveries, another great figure took the physiological approach even further. Hippocrates, often called the father of medicine. He believed that our health and even personality depended on the balance of four bodily fluids or humors: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. When these humors were in harmony, we stayed healthy, but if one was too high or too low, it could cause illness. He concluded that all these disorders were caused by natural and physiological factors such as genes, injuries in the body, and imbalance of bodily fluids. He believed that the body had the ability to heal naturally, hence, the treatment involved proper diet, exercise, rest, and massages. So far, Greek thinkers explored the body, the senses, and even the balance of our inner fluids. But now, the focus turned inward to the mind, the soul, and how we question our very beliefs. Socrates was one of the key figures in this shift. He asked big questions: who am I? What is truth? And he believed the answers began with thoughtful discussion. This dialogue came to be known as Socratic questioning. It is about asking why and how to challenge assumptions, uncover hidden beliefs, and get closer to the truth. Instead of giving answers, Socrates guided people with more questions until they found the answers themselves. Socrates' student, Plato, built on his teachings. He believed that our soul had three parts: the appetitive part that constituted our needs and wants like hunger and thirst, our emotional part that was made up of all our emotions, and the rational part that constituted our thinking and knowledge. He believed we needed a rational component to suppress the needs of the body or the flesh in order to gain true knowledge, which can be gained through introspection. Plato also introduced the theory of reminiscence, where he said that all knowledge is inside us. We only need to think deeply to access that knowledge. So, when our senses interact with our environment, we don't learn anything new. They are just reminders of what we already know. Plato also had theories regarding sleep and dreams, where he believed that although while waking we were able to rationally control our urges, however, when we slept, our wild part knew that the rational part was sleeping and that it was free from any shame or control, so it would go wild, which resulted in our dreams of sex and murder. One of Plato's brightest students was Aristotle. But while Plato trusted reason above all else, Aristotle believed our senses were just as important for understanding the world, and while Plato had said knowledge is inborn, Aristotle believed memory comes from experience. Aristotle believed that when sensations occur, they create images that last longer than the stimulation itself, and the retention of these images is what constitutes memory. He also believed that dreams come from past experiences but are weird because when we sleep, our reasoning is turned off, so images aren't organized logically. Aristotle also believed that humans can use reason to control desires, as true happiness comes from rational living and not giving into our urges, and encourage living a moderate and balanced life. After Aristotle, most philosophers either built on what had already been said or turned their focus toward religion. And that's how the ideas of these Greek philosophers kept echoing through history, still shaping how we think today.